Hello again, I am Blunty and I'm here with Mark Griskey, who is the composer on Force Unleashed 2. How are you, mate?
Great.
Take me through the process. How does composing for a video game work? Do you get sort of an idea of what the scene is going to be, or do you get sort of something rendered, or how does it work? I've got no idea.
Yeah, composing for games is an interesting challenge because everything is sort of in production at the same time. Traditionally in film, although this is changing with technology we have now, but traditionally the way it would work is the film would be completely shot, completely edited before a composer was ever brought in, so you can actually see all the finished visuals. With a game, a lot of the stuff is being created at the same time that I'm writing the music. I don't have the luxury of waiting for them to finish everything else and then they can sit around and wait for me to write the music. So, I have various things that I can draw upon for inspiration. There's a lot of concept art being created by some of the artists here at LucasArts, and so I'll ask for as much of that as I can get and print it out and plaster it on the walls of the studio. And I know what the planets look like, I know what the characters look like. That helps give me a feel for various musical elements for the game there. And then I'll have a script. There's a great storyline for The Force Unleashed 2. Just like there was in the original Force Unleashed. So it's inspiring to read that script and really absorb it and understand emotionally what the characters are going through and dramatically what's happening. Talk to the team, talk to particularly my main contact here at LucasArts was music supervisor Jesse Harlan, so he can be going to meetings with other team members here and be able to pass on information. When I have questions, okay, how do we want this character to feel? What's the emotional impact? For Star Wars games, we want it to sound like Star Wars. The fans, there's a certain look for Star Wars. There's also a certain sound. People expect a lightsaber to sound like a lightsaber and a TIE fighter to sound like a TIE fighter. And in the musical language and sort of color palette of music in Star Wars is very much influenced by how John Williams treated the music for the film.
So it's got that very John Williams horn section kind of feel.
Oh yeah, big orchestra.
How do you live up to that? I mean, that's a lot of pressure to live up to John Williams. As a composer, how do you turn your face to that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a challenge, and particularly when I first started working in the Star Wars universe, I just had to do a lot of research to do my homework and understand, because it's not a style that's even normally used in modern film scores right now. It's a very romantic, very colorful style. He uses a lot of woodwinds. He uses these harp flurries, and like you said, big powerful brass and percussion. And so I definitely did my research there, but also just kind of understanding where John Williams got his inspiration. And it's from classical music of the Romantic period, legitimate, concert music. So I would, listen to this stuff constantly when I'm working on a Star Wars game. We'd just have all the CDs from the films, plus, some other music that is part of that same music vocabulary, like I mentioned. Just in the car, if I'm going anywhere, I'm listening to it constantly, and just sort of absorbing it vicariously almost. But we also wanted to utilize some of the themes that he actually composed when it made sense. If there was a character or a planet that appears in the films and there was a musical motif that was already created there, we want to stay true to that. And then when it steps outside and we're in new territory here and there's new characters and new locations, and then it was up to me to create something that was new and original for the game, but still would tie in and kind of have that feel.
Must be a fine line to walk to try and fit into the existing score, but not be a parody or a copy of it.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want, my job isn't to mimic John Williams so much as to really kind of absorb it and integrate it, and it is a fine line. It's hard to kind of just stay right in that zone there, but I think we did a good job with it, and it's a team effort. It's I'm creating the music, I'm writing the score, but like I said, there's a lot of back and forth between myself and Jesse Harlan. and he's absorbing input, and other people here on the team are giving their input to, so some of the cues that I wrote might have had, a few revisions before we decided on the final, particularly if it's a main theme for an important character.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff went a lot smoother than that, but it's, you just have to completely immerse yourself in it and make it sound natural instead of you're forcing, you're trying to stick it into this mold of this John Williams sound and do it mechanically.
Now, one of the fantastic things about Star Wars, and you don't always pick up on it consciously, but every sort of scene or planet or person or character has their own distinctive musical cue. Do you have a favourite?
From the Star Wars?
From Star Wars, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean a lot. I mean, you think Star Wars, you think of the main title, you think of the Imperial March. I always really liked the Force theme, which some people call it the binary sunset theme, because there was, it's particularly featured in that one scene, and it has this heroic, uplifting quality. Those are the three pinnacles, I think, of the Star Wars sound, but there's so many.
Imperial March is my ringtone, so.
yeah, exactly. And so the great thing is working, because we've got access to those actual themes and everything. Darth Vader appears in this game, and what says Darth Vader more than the Imperial March? So I didn't have to try to create something new just for the sake of being different, or, we could actually use the Imperial March, and whether it was one of the original recordings and they edited it in there, or I would incorporate it in with some of my original themes that had we've got a theme that evolved into from like the original menu music from the first game that became the Starkiller theme. So this is Sam Witwer's character's theme. So being able to weave that in with, and then quote the Imperial March in some battle music between the apprentice and Darth Vader is fantastic,
It's an interesting way to put it, sort of quoted, if we're talking about, in a literary sense, you're just simply quoting that piece of music.
And just, because the melody is so recognizable, it can be, with a different arrangement behind it, we can customize it and craft it for what's needed in the game, and still literally quote it, or in other cases, maybe I just want to sort of make a nod towards something, maybe the same harmonic progression of the Force theme at a particular moment, but a different melodic, content, that sort of stuff.
So how do you go about it, composing in your process? Is it something you sort of dedicate some time to go, you sit down at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, okay, I've got to write something, or you just go about your day and hum?
Well, yeah, it usually just turns into, like, the schedule is such in this industry in general that, I pretty much have to sit down and start generating a lot of content. If there's luxury at the beginning to brainstorm a little, that's always nice. But it became, and it was nice. We had a pretty tight schedule on the Force Unleashed 2, but we had already established some themes with the Force Unleashed 1. I had already done several Star Wars games. I was familiar with the John Williams sound palette. So I was pretty much able to just kind of dive in and start writing every day. But inspiration still, it can't be completely on clockwork. It's not like, okay, I'm going to, compose for 4 hours and I'm going to take a lunch break and compose for another 4 hours. Yeah. I might compose all morning long, but get frustrated and want to tear everything up, and then get inspired late in the evening and stay up all night writing and grab a few hours and wake up the next morning. But it's great once you get inspired and your main themes are established and you kind of have some anchors in the score. You just live and breathe it, and you just, it was 7 days a week for a month, 10, 12 hours a day for a month, and the score is generated,
Now, do you personally like writing the sort of heroic, uplifting thing, or the sort of dark and underbelly? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when you ask an actor that, they always like playing the dark.
Yeah. I love both. I just love drama, so it's great to have the uplifting and the emotional elements. We've got, there's a love interest that happens in this game between Starkiller and the character Juno Eclipse. So it was really nice to write something that was lush and romantic and sensitive, you know, because so much of video game scores tend to just be about bludgeoning bad guys, and so the music tends to be hitting all the time, but dark, atmospheric, spooky. I mean, as a kid, my favorite holiday, you know, probably still is Halloween. I just love, and I love reading ghost stories, and I love, you know, fantasy literature, and so dark, atmospheric. There's a lot of dark elements in this game, so it was great to just really stretch out there. And there's so much you can do with a symphony orchestra in terms of color palette for a dark score. You know, if it's a heroic uplifting, it's probably going to be the horns playing the heroic melody, and there's, you know, it's maybe a little more of what you would normally expect an orchestra to sound like. And for some of the dark stuff, they're doing these weird squeaky string bends and you know, half valving the brass instruments to get this interesting, you know, tonal color in there, and you're just sort of mixing and smearing this darker color palette.
Yeah. Was the music for this game all done with a live orchestra, or was there a lot of just pure digital stuff?
It's almost all it's all live orchestra. Yeah, I don't think there was anything there. Probably added some sample elements. So and samples are essentially just recordings of you know, real instruments or actual audio anyway. But we recorded a 70-some piece orchestra at Skywalker Sound. We did 4 recording sessions there, and we had members of the San Francisco Symphony and San Francisco Opera, and we recorded in one of the best facilities in the world, and it's just fabulous. I couldn't be more thrilled.
That's going to be your ideal day, doesn't it? Just
oh
having
yeah,
that set up at your disposal.
it's so worth the sleepless nights if you got a big deadline to be there and just hear it come to life finally.
All right. Well, thank you very much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.